Hello, my name is Karen Bizda. Heidi asked me to do this interview because of my many years as a business communication professor. I came to know Heidi through a large circle of friends a little over 10 years ago. We both worked in higher education and developed a mutually supportive friendship. It didn't take long to learn that Heidi is willing to research any issue, dissect the information, and provide people with a balanced view of any topic. She has such a caring attitude. My goal today is to help you get to know Heidi, her values, her skills, her experience. So, who's Heidi? Why would she make an excellent selectman?
Karen, I really appreciate you doing this today and helping me out in this way. So I look forward to the conversation.
It's my pleasure, Heidi. Shall we get started?
That would be great.
My first question for you, Heidi, is fairness being such a critical issue in today's climate, what would your position be for the Hudson community?
Well, as you know, fairness or the pursuit of justice is something that is innately within me. My favorite story about this really stems back to 6th grade. I was always the student who was very observant and could see what was happening around me. And one day, the teacher was out of the classroom and an incident happened. And the teacher came back in and, scolded the usual people, but it wasn't them. So I stood up to the teacher and said, "You're wrong. That's not fair." And of course, I was sent out into the hallway and was also disciplined for speaking back to the teacher, although respectfully, in some ways out of order. So, it's one of those things that when I see an injustice or someone being treated unfairly, I take action. And that's really what I bring to the table, is trying to really understand the situation and making sure that there's some fairness, some understanding, some mutual commitment to whatever that issue is.
I can appreciate that story, Heidi. I know this to be very true about you, actually. At this juncture, I'd like to ask if you would please share any examples of how you take care of people in need.
Well, as you know, I highly value helping people, and it's really something that both my husband and I value. We've helped friends and family in many different ways. I always like to say that we're kind of your backup to your backup. So whether it is that you need a ride to the airport or you have so many errands to run and your child needs some time to be watched, I'll step in and I'll do those things. Often when people are ill or recovering, I often come and visit and just sit with those people, often to give caregivers a break, but just all around being helpful and being there for those people.
That's very commendable. And I can actually say I have been on the receiving end of that, and it's been wonderful. Are you ready to move on?
There was one other example that I recall. I worked in youth ministry for many years, and one of my youth, through her years of growing up, actually lived locally. And she ran into trouble finding daycare. She needed daycare in town because she needed to get the bus for her child. And so we were in town. So we had the joy of, watching her son certain days in order for her to be able to continue with her education and continue with her goals. So that was one real example that was totally because we lived in Hudson.
Again, just shows how much you care. Heidi, can you please tell your constituents why you moved to Hudson and how long you've been here?
We moved to Hudson in 1994. Michael and I are high school sweethearts and have been together since we were like 17 back in Long Island. But for me, it was always important for us to graduate from college, live on our own a little bit. So his first job out of college was in Rhode Island. So I followed him to Rhode Island. I went and got my master's at the University of Rhode Island. And then from there, my first job after my master's was at Rivier University here in Nashua. So then it was, okay, time to get a house. And where to live? Do we live in Massachusetts, where my husband worked at Raytheon, or do we live in New Hampshire? And we picked Hudson and built our home here, and we plan on staying here. This is really our forever home.
Awesome. I know you have a wealth of work experience. Take us from your oldest work experience to what you and your husband are working on today.
Okay. My oldest work experience is really back when I was a child working for my father. My father was a painting contractor. I was the youngest and the only girl. My brothers, of course, could work for him when they were like 13. I had to wait until I was 16. But I really enjoyed painting homes and helping people because it was something that when I painted, I could see at the end of the day what I had accomplished. So from there, it's many people have done this. I've worked at Dunkin' Donuts, was kind of my hospitality opportunity. And I worked midnight to 6 a.m., which is great on Long Island in New York, quite interesting. Then did some retail work. Then after college, worked in management consulting and for a big corporation in Manhattan. Always thinking I wanted to be a woman that worked corporate. Found that corporate life wasn't for me, that I really wanted that individual connection. So from there, I went back to my alma mater, Pace University, and I worked there in human resources, and then worked in the academic accounting department, doing advising for students and advising for professors. I got to help both professors and students, which introduced me to the fact that I could work in higher education, which of course led me to the University of Rhode Island, to Rivier University, and to Daniel Webster College. And then after that, I worked in ministry with youth ministry and discipleship ministry. And now finally, we own our own business. It's a retail, online retail business right here in Hudson. And that's where we are. Now we're entrepreneurs. So many and various experiences. Along with that, a lot of volunteer work, a lot of work on committees and boards and all of that.
And you've come full circle.
Yes.
That's quite an interesting background. Very, very rich. And therefore, you now have a toolbox of a lot of skills.
Yep.
And I'd like to know which particular skills you think fit best for you to bring to the Board of Selectmen in Hudson that you've acquired from all this experience.
So I think the experience I required, or that came very early, is that experience of leadership. The ability to really bring people together and hone their gifts and their expertise and bring that forward in order to get a result that is better than any one of us could have ever come to. That sense of leadership, building community, building consensus, building understanding. One of the things that I quote all the time is that I seek first to understand and then to be understood. And that some of you might recognize that as Stephen Covey's work, but I really tried to embrace that through listening carefully to people, making sure that I understand their point of view, making sure that they feel heard, and then synthesizing that information with research, with knowledge that I have, with seeking out expertise, and then really bringing that together to any board for a transparent, open conversation to then make the best decision possible.
Glad to hear you talking about listening, because I believe that is the most critical skill as a communication professor,
Yep.
the most critical skill anyone could bring to the table.
Thank you. I really try and ensure that people are heard.
So what other gifts would you like the opportunity to share with your Hudson community?
I think just my positive attitude about anything being possible, about things being better, about creating processes that are understandable, transparent, and respectful. I know in any political setting or any municipal setting, there's always disagreements, but I really respect every perspective, and I really want the community to be able to have great conversation with respect and giving every person dignity and understanding.
Very nice. Have you had any involvement in the Hudson community so far where something significant has actually come to fruition?
Well, some of you may know a while back there was a lot of discussion around the right to know policy within the town. And I, with 3 other residents, really went to court to get some more transparency and to see additional records from the town. And through that, I was able to help facilitate a brand new right to know policy for the Hudson community. A right to know policy which should make every resident able to get information much more easily, and also to enable the town to more easily pull that information together in a really concise and consistent way. So it was a settlement and agreement with the Board of Selectmen, who I really respect. You know, they worked with us to come up with a plan. There was an independent committee, of which I did not serve on, I just helped create. And that committee really brought this to fruition. And I'm very proud of my role in helping that to happen.
I know you have a continuous goal in mind for this spectacular community. In closing, could you please share your actual vision?
My vision for Hudson is to have the community come out and share all their gifts and skills in the best way possible to lift up this community. Hudson is a great place to call home, and I want to continue that legacy moving forward. And I know that there are partnerships within our town that can be made. There's expertise within our town that we haven't tapped. So I really want to create a community of caring for one another and of lifting up this town so that it can continue to be just a great community to call home.
Awesome. Just like the sign says,
Yes.
Here in town. Okay. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with your community at this time?
I do. My final thoughts are, I really respect your decision and your ability to analyze all of the candidates, to look at the warrant articles, and to make your informed decision. On March 14th, I ask you to go vote and vote who best represents you and who you want to fulfill each of these positions. The decision is in your hands. Please talk with your neighbors, encourage them to come out and vote. And on March 14th, make your decision. I really appreciate you taking this time to get to know me.
Thank you, Heidi.